Chapter 9. The Ferryman. Siddhartha decided to remain by the river, recognizing it as the same water he had crossed years ago on his way to the town. He looked lovingly into the transparent green water, noticing the pearls of bubbles and the reflection of the sky. A newly awakened voice within him commanded, "Love this river, stay by it, learn from it." He felt that anyone who truly understood the river and its secrets would understand the secrets of the universe. He observed the river's primary secret. The water continually flows, yet it is always there. It is always the same, yet every moment it is new. Driven by an unbearable hunger, Siddhartha walked along the bank until he reached the ferry. There stood the ferryman who had taken him across many years ago. The ferryman, Vasudeva, had grown very old. Siddhartha asked for a passage and offered his fine clothes as payment since he had no money. Vasudeva looked at him keenly and finally recognized him. "You are Siddhartha. You were once a samana." Vasudeva welcomed him warmly and invited him to his hut. That night, Siddhartha poured out his heart, telling the story of his life from his Brahman youth to his years of greed, dice playing, and his eventual despair by the river. Vasudeva was a perfect listener. He listened with great attention, without judgment or impatience. Siddhartha felt it was wonderful to have such a listener who could absorb another's life so completely. When Siddhartha spoke of the river and the holy Om, Vasudeva closed his eyes and said, "The river has spoken to you. It is your friend." "Stay with me." Siddhartha asked to be his apprentice. Vasudeva agreed but noted, "You will learn the art of listening not from me, but from the river. The river knows everything." Siddhartha began his new life, learning to handle the boat, weave baskets, and work in the fields. But his greatest lessons came from the water itself. He learned from the river that there is no such thing as time. The river is at the source, the mouth, the waterfall, and the ocean, all at the same time. There is only the present for the river, without the shadow of the past or the future. Siddhartha realized his own life was like a river. The boy, Siddhartha, the mature man, and the old man were not separated by reality, but only by shadows. This discovery made him immensely happy, as he realized that all sorrow and fear exist only within the illusion of time. Years passed, and the two ferrymen began to resemble each other, both possessing a radiant, childlike, and peaceful smile. As time went on, news spread that Gautama the Buddha was dying. Swarms of pilgrims traveled to see him one last time. Among them was Kamala, who had turned to the Buddha's teachings and gifted her garden to his monks. She was traveling on foot with her son. Near the ferry, a black snake bit her. Vasudeva carried the unconscious Kamala to the hut. Siddhartha looked at the boy's face and immediately recognized his own son. Kamala awoke and recognized Siddhartha, seeing in his eyes the very peace she had hoped to find in the Buddha. She died in his arms, and Siddhartha felt the indestructibility of life, even in the face of death. He and Vasudeva performed her last rites on the hill, and Siddhartha stood by the river, a father now, listening to the eternal unity of all things. Chapter 10. Frightened and gloomy, he had listened to Siddhartha greeting him as his son and making him welcome in Vasudeva's hut. For days on end, he sat with a pale, stony face on the hill of the dead, looking away, locking his heart, and fighting with all his might against his fate. Siddhartha treated him with immense consideration and left him alone, for he deeply respected the boy's grief. He understood that his son did not know him and could not love him as a father. Slowly, he also realized that the 11-year-old child was a spoilt mother's boy, brought up in the luxurious habits of the rich. He was accustomed to fine food, a soft bed, and commanding servants. Siddhartha understood that this grieving boy could not suddenly find contentment in a strange, poor hut. He did not press him. He did a great deal for him, and always saved the best morsels of food, hoping that friendly patience would eventually win him over. He had considered himself rich and happy when the boy first came, but as time passed and the boy remained unfriendly, sulky, arrogant, and defiant, Siddhartha's peace began to crumble. The boy would do no work, showed no respect to the old men, and even robbed Vasudeva's fruit trees. Siddhartha began to realize that no happiness had come with his son, only sorrow and trouble. But he loved him so blindly that he preferred the sorrow and trouble of his love rather than happiness and pleasure without the boy. Since young Siddhartha's arrival, Vasudeva had taken over all the work at the ferry, while Siddhartha stayed in the hut and the fields to be near his son. For many months, Siddhartha waited, hoping the boy would accept his love. One day, when the boy had broken both rice bowls in a fit of temper, Vasudeva took Siddhartha aside and said, "The young bird is accustomed to a different life. He did not run away from riches out of nausea as you did. He was forced to leave them. I have asked the river, and the river laughed at our folly. Water will go to water, youth to youth. Your son will not be happy here." Vasudeva's smile was warm but honest. He reminded Siddhartha that even though the boy belonged to the everlasting life, his path would be full of mistakes and sins. He asked Siddhartha, "Are you educating him? Do you punish him? No, you don't, because you believe love is stronger than force. But are you not perhaps chaining him with your love? You compel this spoiled boy to live in a hut with two old banana eaters whose hearts beat differently from his. Is he not constrained by your very goodness?" Siddhartha looked at the ground in perplexity and asked what he should do. Vasudeva suggested taking him back to the town, to his mother's house, or to a teacher where he could meet other children. Siddhartha feared the boy would be lost in samsara, but Vasudeva laughed and reminded him of his own story. Who protected Siddhartha the Samana from sin, greed, and folly? Could his father's piety or his own knowledge protect him? No father can prevent his son from finding his own path, however bitter it may be. Siddhartha could not take the advice. His love was too blind, too painful, and too hopeful. He allowed the boy to command him and insult him, starting a daily mute battle of friendliness. He remembered Kamala once telling him, "You cannot love," and he realized that now, for the first time in his life, he had become completely like ordinary people through this suffering. He was madly in love, a fool because of love. This blind passion for his son was his sansara, a troubled spring of deep water, yet he felt it was necessary for his nature. Meanwhile, the boy hated this father who answered every insult with a smile and every naughtiness with kindness. To him, it was just the hateful cunning of an old fox. One day, the boy exploded. He refused to gather twigs, stamped his feet, and shouted, "I am not your servant. I hate you. I would rather become a thief or a murderer and go to hell than be like you, so pious and wise. You are not my father, even if you were my mother's lover."
He ran away and only returned late.
The next morning, he was gone for good. He had stolen the ferryman's money and the boat. Siddhartha, in great distress, built a raft with Vasudeva to follow him. Vasudeva helped him but told him, "Let him go. He is looking for his own way. You are suffering a pain over which you will soon laugh." Siddhartha reached the outskirts of the town and stood by the gate of Kamala's old garden. The past rose. Before his eyes, he saw himself as a young, dusty Samana, then as a merchant, and heard the Om again. He realized that his desire to force himself on his son was foolish. He felt a deep love for the runaway boy, a love that felt like a smarting wound. But he knew this wound was meant to heal. He sat in the dust for hours, listening to his heart, sinking into emptiness, until he felt the wound smarting less as he filled himself with Om. Eventually, Vasudeva touched his shoulder and woke him from his trance. Siddhartha rose, ate a banana one of the monks had left him, and walked silently back to the ferry with his friend. Neither of them spoke the boy's name again, but Siddhartha felt a new, quiet strength within his sorrow.